Hey everyone, Sparrow here. Hope you're having the most wonderful day. At the time this episode is released, I am most likely on a very rainy camping trip. Booked the campground a few weeks ago, but right now, as I'm recording, it looks like there is going to be rain Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so love that for me. Hiking in cooler weather is actually great though because you don't overheat as much and your water seems to last longer, so maybe it's not all bad. Anyways, after last week's episode, there was a poll in my community tab and 60% of you voted fox. So we are building the red fox habitat today. This actually worked out quite well as I had planned for the red fox to take up the spot right across from the exhibits created last week, nestled into this lower portion next to the river. Don't worry, the raccoon and skunk are still coming up soon as they will be part of the Woodland Walk portion of True North Sanctuary. First up is modifying an existing fence from the entrance with some painted wood beams to give it a more woodland feel. I staggered the heights to make it feel more organic and recolored it. A tip for recoloring repeating items like this to make your structures feel more realistic is pick a base color and then pick a color that's slightly darker than it and a color that's slightly lighter. Just a little bit, not too far away in the hue picker, so the wood isn't all the same. It's basically like painting, adding a little bit of black to create a darker shade, or adding a little bit of white to create a lighter tint. I'm going to smooth out the terrain underneath the path before moving on to creating some custom fences for the enclosure. They will be made up of mesh and wood primarily, about 3.5 meters tall, which, after checking the Zoopedia to confirm 10 feet is just over 3 meters, is tall enough for the foxes. From looking at pictures on various platforms such as ZooChat, Zoolex, and Zoo Institutions, it looks like foxes are generally kept in enclosed or partially enclosed habitats. Pretty sure the enclosed habitats are so that large birds of prey can't swoop in and grab smaller foxes, which could potentially be a hazard here at True North as well, but the size of this habitat and also the fact that I will be adding some pretty tall trees made me decide on having a barrier with a short lip on the end instead. Just for reference, this habitat is about twice the size it needs to be for a pair of foxes, but I do hope that these two have a litter soon and we can house more foxes in this beautiful habitat I'll be building for them. My own local zoo has a single red fox, and of the countless times I've been there, I have seen it exactly once. I think it's usually hiding underground, either it's super shy or it just doesn't like the weather. The only time I have seen it was on a colder, rainy day. Maybe I'll have to take some screenshots and video of this habitat in the rain as well. Seems to be a theme this weekend. I myself am not a fan of rain in the slightest, but I suppose it does have a certain aesthetic to it. This portion of the fence is complete, and with some final recoloring, it'll be time to fence off the habitat. I'm quite happy with how this fence turned out. I've usually had a hard time building these taller fences that you would see in habitats for carnivorous animals, which is a shame because wild dogs and big cats are some of my favorite animals. I find it hard to make them realistic, especially if the top also needs to be enclosed to make sure the animals don't climb out, as in the case of something like a cougar or a snow leopard. Just another reason to get better at building them, I suppose. Now, I did start with this 4-meter mesh piece, which works for the front portion, but as I started climbing the hill and rotating my custom wall, the length made it difficult to work with. So I did end up making a 2-meter version as well so that the rotations on the hill wouldn't be as long and janky. Returned to my original panel, which is still on the world axis of the map, so it was easier to move my pieces into place. That's something I always try to do, leave a custom piece on the world axis, or at least blueprint it on the world axis, and that way I can always return to it and edit with ease if I need to. As you can see, even with the shorter panels, the mesh was overlapping slightly, but honestly, that's something I can live with. Looked a lot better than before, that's for sure. Used another one of the longer fence panels to provide a bigger viewing window here and potentially enticed guests to come down to the fox house at the bottom. At the very top, I filled in the corner with a continuation of the wood beams to connect the fences. A common element like this works wonders in unifying the look of the whole exterior. While I worked on this, I did also realize that the default color of the painted wood beams is very close to one of the True North Sanctuary colors, which I thought was funny. Maybe I should leave a section of teal painted wood somewhere. What do you guys think? Fun or kitschy? Yeah, maybe a little bit too out there for this zoo. Going back to fill in some of the gaps in the mesh and wood beams, the only part of the fences that really got reworked was the top metal and mesh connections, because they're the most obviously misaligned. Pretty easy and quick fix overall though, and the payoff in terms of looks is massive. It's a good thing we have those tiny mesh pieces for stuff like that. We'll get started on the indoor area, first making sure the terrain is nice and flat so we can sink the concrete floors into the ground evenly. The idea for the indoor part is to have a large viewing window into part of it and also a caged off portion in the back staff area where the habitat entrance is, so the foxes have somewhere to go when they want to be away from prying eyes. I initially started building a mesh fence to act as the barrier for the indoor viewing, but changed my mind for aesthetic purposes that I will get into during the walkthrough today. Adding some more reinforcement between the mesh panels, and we'll begin to copy this over to create the caged off area in the back. The rest of the interior wall will be more concrete. Not sure if I'm loving the look. I started with concrete in the beginning, and I'm now wondering if maybe I should swap to the plaster walls because I like their texture a bit more, but this building does need lots of structural integrity, and poured concrete is the go-to for that in Canada. Things are slowly changing, but exterior walls generally have a concrete or cement finish, while interior walls are more likely to be plastered. So could have used plaster walls on the inside here, but we'll just stick with the cement for now. There are newer, more weatherproof plasters on the market that can be used for exteriors too though, as far as I know. But yeah, we'll just stick with the concrete for now to keep things simple. But let me know in the comments what your preference is for walls in game. Obviously will depend on what kind of zoo you're building, but I would love to hear about your current projects too. This wall separating the interior sections will have a gate in it that can be opened and closed should the foxes need to be separated. Made a rough estimate of the size with the concrete before deciding to put the foxes in to make sure it was correct. That of course meant I had to put up some habitat barriers and a habitat gate that I had neglected to do so far, but with all of the walls set up, this was a relatively quick and easy part of this project. The names for the foxes joining True North Sanctuary are inspired by a comment left by Helena Bonham Carter XX. In the bison and pronghorn video, I mentioned that Lyra, which is a constellation one of our pronghorns is named after, is one of my favorite characters, and the comment had this lovely idea to name the animals of a different enclosure with the names of other characters in the His Dark Materials series. Unfortunately, I already have a naming convention in mind for the raccoons, but I thought the foxes worked really well for that idea, so say hello to Marissa and Azriel. Now that they're in the habitat, I'll be better able to measure the gate as I build it. Similar to the prairie dog house, but quite a bit larger. These gates will be a combination of the large metal beams on the outside, small metal beams on the inside, and the aluminum panels to create the illusion of a door that slides up into the wall and then potentially also back down. I also added the planetzooo gutter piece to the bottom to make it look like there was some sort of track or locking mechanism that the door slides into when closed. Made sure everything was looking nice before recoloring and grouping all of it together for easy copying to the other gates. Played around with the color on the beam at the bottom of the sliding portion. I went from a yellow to one of the True North Sanctuary teals, and finally ended up on the green that is featured on the zookeeper uniforms. I'm so glad I happened upon this green. It fits in so well with this portion of the zoo especially. Once all of these gates are in, we'll be able to decorate the habitat. First order of business, a super quick terrain paint, probably the fastest I've ever done that. And then it's rock and stone and boulders of all sizes to cover up the back of this habitat. Just going to make sure they're not clipping through the wall into the building, and then I'll work my way out from that corner across the wall and down part of the side of the habitat. While I do this, I do want to talk more about the naming inspiration for the foxes, because as an animal lover, and assuming most people who watch this video are also animal lovers. One thing that made me fall in love with the His Dark Materials series was the demons. Demons are basically a physical manifestation of one's inner self, their traits, attitude, personality, aspirations, etc., and it appears in the form of an animal. Now, of course, I was curious about which animal form my demon might take, and that led me down a rabbit hole of quizzes. There was one that stood out, and I think you all might find it interesting because whoever created it put in a lot of work. Not only is there a quiz that decides which animal family your demon is in, there's a follow-up quiz for each family to determine the exact species your demon might take. And these quizzes aren't the type where you can guess where your answers will lead, because some questions have 2 answers while others have like 10, so I thought that was pretty cool. The first quiz led me to the serpent category, which, according to the description, is the demon of those who are sly and observant people who aim to injure. They are mysterious and private, deeply intellectual, preferably 3 steps ahead of everyone else. They live in the big picture rather than day by day, and their vanity is well deserved. I'd say quite a few of those descriptors fit me, for better or for worse. The serpent quiz led me even deeper to the milk snake as my demon, which did actually resonate even more with me. The description was of a private but polite individual who looks before they leap. True, I did do a lot of research before starting this zoo and this channel. Tactful and shrewd with high standards, preferring their comfort zone but calm in the face of change. Don't know about the calm in the face of change. I really hate change, but I do think I'm pretty adaptable when I need to be. And the kicker, classically passive-aggressive and hate conflict, willing to take advantage of others to avoid negative attention. Unfortunately, can be true at times as well. But yeah, I just thought it was very cool just how many different options there are to this, and appreciate how long it must have taken the quiz creator to put this together. I'll leave the link in the description if you'd like to find out what your demon is, and if you do, please let me know in the comments your result, because I find the concept of animals representing our inner selves incredibly fascinating. But you're probably here for the speed build, so let's chat about this interior. I've added some enrichment items, some platforms for the foxes to climb or sleep under, and also some faux trees to liven up the interior a bit and make it seem like less of a concrete box. I also threw down a bunch of the autumn leaf litter to add more color and make it look like the foxes have tracked in a bunch of foliage from the exterior of their habitat. One of the cutest videos of a red fox I've ever seen was one where it's playing in a pile of leaves, or more likely hunting something that's moving through them, but these leaves helped bring that idea to this enclosure. We'll add the leaves to the outside enclosure as well, but first some general foliage all around, peeking through the rocks, adding some ground cover to the otherwise terrain painted exhibit, and so on. This plant back here, I actually added a few of the diamond leaf willows stacked on top of each other to create a new, fuller bush to fill the corner. That's a tip from Mike Sheets, an amazing planetzoo creator, for creating your own foliage using multiples of the same plant. He does also have a method for creating your own trees, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'll be using the in-game trees for now. Which, speaking of, I wanted more tall trees in this habitat because it is the first enclosure in the Woodland Walk, and so far the habitats have featured very few or no trees at all. I mostly opted for tall, thin trees like the Douglas fir pine and the quaking aspen, so they wouldn't impede guest view too much while providing decent coverage, as well as some more colorful trees like the sugar maple. When placing the enrichment items, I put down a path first and then the sprinkler on top to prevent the placement from flattening the terrain. This is a great tip if you don't want to ruin your terraforming but care about your animals having fun. Some more additions to the building now that the habitat exterior is mostly complete. The beams on the wall were created using the same technique as the fence at the beginning of the video. On the habitat side, I thought the concrete looked way too plain, so I decided to pull the log wall logs from the construction panel. They work well with the design of the climbing platforms that we have inside, and by layering them I could create a bit of a log cabin feel on the exterior of the building. I created a few rows that I was happy with, and then copied them up one at a time so there was some variation between the logs. And then once that portion of the wall was complete, it was easy to slide it over and edit small details as necessary. The sugar maple was also amazing at hiding the joins between the differing levels, since the doorways are at different heights. A little bit of a time skip here because I want to keep the interior with the viewing window a surprise until the walkthrough. I'm just super proud of it and the way it turned out, and excited to share it with you in real time rather than in a scripted voiceover. In this last portion of the speed build, I'm adding a second floor to the building that will be accessible from the prairie pathway. Not sure what will be up here yet, the interior wouldn't be part of this video, but I'm thinking maybe an education space? A classroom that zoo educators can use with field trips maybe? I do think True North needs a space like that. Giving it a cute patio up front, didn't give it an in-game path so guests won't be able to come up here, but this is all for show and fun anyway. Repurposing a fence I created for the entrance plaza, I used this fence near the river by the fox house as well. Just a simple wood beam and rope fence with a small detail to make it look like there's a hole in the wood that the fence disappears into. Finally, the roof. I'm so glad I gave this roof piece a chance because in the construction menu, it's this pastel purple, blue, white thing that is difficult to imagine in other colors and looks like it belongs on a fantasy building, or could possibly be at home in an Arctic zoo maybe. But once I recolored it to browns and made the walls a combination of beige and green, it really brought the building together. The last thing this space needs, whatever it ends up being, is some windows to liven up the exterior of the building. I did manage to do that entire voiceover in one fell swoop this time around. First time that's happened, so that's pretty cool. But here we are at the exhibits that we did last week, and this is where we're going to be starting our tour. So down here is that waterfall that we created, and over here is the fox habitat that we did in today's speed build. Let's take a walk down this path. Wonder if they're hanging outside. Oh, yeah, one of them is playing with the sprinkler, or near the sprinkler. Oh, they're both out here. Very good. Hello. They have been hanging out indoors quite a bit, so it's nice that they're coming outside as well. Yeah. We have a educational speaker hidden in here. That's probably what you're hearing in the desktop audio. And then back here is the river that is going to go on into the moose and beaver habitat, which will be coming up shortly as well. Inside of this building, which is the part of the speed build that we skipped, but the one that I'm very excited to show. So on our right here is our viewing window. And the reason why I decided not to do the mesh fence in here and do a glass window instead is mostly because I wanted these concrete walls all around it so that I could create a sort of woodland scene in here. We have the faux tree trunks, we have some of the climbable branches from the habitat tab, some of the leaf decals, another hidden educational speaker. And yeah, it kind of sets the tone for this interior part of the habitat. In the corner here, I put up a great gray owl off of the workshop. This is one of Drac's birds, just to give the whole woodland scene a little bit of context and some of the other animals you might find in a fox's habitat. So that's some information there. A stay off the rocks, don't climb here sign, and some more flowers that could be found in this biome maybe. But in here, originally, I had the green walls going all the way around, and it just looked so plain and so boring, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I went to one of the Discord servers I'm in, Gunter's Gaming, and he actually suggested putting a forest scene in the background to help extend the habitat, and that's exactly what I did. I think it looks absolutely amazing, so that was a genius idea. On the roof, we have some leaves to make it look like these trees are actually extending further. This is the autumn leaf litter. This is the top of the leaves. And this other color is actually the bottom of these same leaves. So they have like this burgundy, olivey tone in here. And then over here, we do have some little steps for children to walk up, or adults if they really want to, and hopefully they can come face to face with a fox if it decides to come play up here. Now on the opposite wall, we're just going to turn around here, is an educational section. So did you know red foxes are very vocal and have 20 different types of calls? That's an incredible amount of different sounds that this animal can make. So hear it for yourself. And on the wall we have a bunch of headphones with some more additional information here. And there are 20 pairs of headphones, so you can listen to all 20 sounds that the fox makes. Originally I wanted to put phones on the wall here and kind of stagger them all over the place. And I did find a phone on the workshop, but it was just too big. It was probably 2 or 3 times the size of these little guys. And I thought the phone would work well because in museums there are often exhibits where you pick up the phone and you listen to a story or something like that. But the headphones I think do actually work here. So these are created using let me show you. This is the European LED tube end cap, so 2 of those. And then this is actually one of the gutter pieces, but I had to rotate it so that you couldn't see this bottom portion. And each group has 2 of them, and they're just stacked on top of the sign bracket here. So I can make those available on the workshop as well for your own educational areas if you would like. So yeah, this is the part that I was just very excited for. I didn't want to spoil it too much, but yeah, I mean, the name of the episode is What Does the Red Fox Say? And this was the perfect way to really tie all of that in together. Up here, we do have some track lighting. So this space can be viewed at nighttime because foxes are crepuscular creatures from what I remember. So they are most active at dawn and at dusk. So not nocturnal, but crepuscular. And so seeing them in the nighttime, kind of like a little fox night house, could also be very educational. So we're just going to turn out the lights here and see how all of that looks. Here we go. A nice nighttime forest scene. I did make the lights purple. Black purple light, I guess, is has less interference with animal cycles, and that's why you'll see a lot of purple and black lights at zoos. And it's still bright enough that you can read most of the text and participate in this educational portion. Nice spotlight on the great gray owl up there as well. So watch your eyes because we're going to turn the lights back on. Oh, that's bright. And we're going to head into the staff area back here. So this is where I kept the mesh fences instead. We have a bunch of Shift C's warehouse pack, I believe. So we have these bins here. We have a little mop and bin in the corner. And then quite a few of these boxes are also from that pack. But these shelves I did build myself, and I can make those available on the workshop as well. Just a bunch of clutter back here. And then I think this wall is going to have a door on it to the next habitat over eventually. So yeah. Let's step through the habitat gate here and get a good look at what the foxes have in here. Pretend that we can fit through this doorway. And this is what the inside of that portion looks like. We have some heaters on the walls because this would have to be an insulated and heated building in the winter. Oh, yeah, see, they track in all the water, so it's not entirely out of the question that they would track in all of these leaves as well. And we will head outside into their outdoor portion. It's a quite sizable habitat. I did end up moving the habitat fences in a little bit to provide a guardrail along this edge. Here it's a little bit further from the path, and the foxes... Oh, I guess they can get right up next to the fence. That's actually a beautiful scene right here. Above the burrow. A little fox hanging out. Aw, both of them hanging out. Adorable. have our rock wall, and then the building here, which is not accessible from this level, but that top portion is accessible from this pathway over here. Oh, that's one of the many sounds the foxes make, apparently. I do love the attention to detail in this game and how they did record all the various sounds that the red foxes make. And you can hear them throughout if you follow them around and film them. Will you play with the sprinkler? They are so cute when they play with the sprinkler. We're gonna pop up to the overhead view and see how it's shaping up. We have this entire section here all filled out. We're gonna fly on over to our educational building, I believe is what is going to end up being here. Just a little patio for now. And then eventually there will be a classroom in there. If you have any ideas for what to name this building, there is plenty of space on the walls here. Thank you for joining me today, whether you're someone who is following this series or a brand new viewer. If you haven't already and you like what you're seeing, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It lets me know I'm doing a good job and you're enjoying the content. And if you like the video, make sure to hit the like button because that also helps me continue with making these videos. They are quite the time commitment. And finally, if you have any suggestions for this habitat, future habitats, or naming conventions, please do leave a comment. Also, let me know what your demon is if you took the quiz and what zoo you are currently working on. I would love to know. As always, here's the view from above, before and after. See you next time. Bye.